feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to the post-show wrap-up of the Shrimp Tank. I'm your co-host Ted Jenkins, sitting here with my co-host Lee Heisman. Of course, our guest today, Josh Sweeney, who's the CEO of FounderScale and also the incoming president for EO here in Atlanta. You have to check both of that out and learn more about becoming a successful entrepreneur. That's what we do right here every week on the Shrimp Tank. We bring in some of the brightest and best CEOs and owners in and around the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia, and of course in our many cities across the United States. You can always hear a replay of our entire podcast today at shrimptankpodcast.com, or you can always download us at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere around the internet. And listen, this podcast, it's going to make a difference in your business about growing top-line revenue, increasing bottom-line profitability, and making you a more successful entrepreneur.
Well, you know, Ted, I got to be the guy and say it, but I'm telling you, there's so many good guests, and I learned so much today. You've got to hit the subscribe button. And most importantly, you have to hit that little alarm so that you're notified when we have our next great guest on. But today, Josh, thanks for coming on the show. So I learned so much about everything you've done with your businesses you've grown, you've sold, the new businesses you have. Tell us your secret sauce.
I think my secret sauce is really that the devil is in the details. So I'm actually a big Elon Musk fan. And when I look at how he runs a business, he's that type of founder that comes down, from the executive suite and really digs into the details in the books. If he talks to an engineer, he knows, okay, here's the next thing you could do, or ask the right questions. And I think so many executives try to get so far removed from the details that that's where some of those challenges start to happen. So I love really getting into the details, but also being able to lead at an executive level.
He does remind you a lot like Steve Jobs in that way about how much Jobs got into Apple. But a lot of the people that may be watching the post-show wrap-up, they're wondering, okay, I am an entrepreneur, I want to become an entrepreneur. How much is this going to affect my family life? Knowing that you exited a successful business, you're running one and doing EO, how do you do? I don't even call it balance. We call it work-life juggle on the show.
Exactly.
How do you juggle all of it?
Yeah, I call it the work-life blend, and you're right. It just, you have to make time for it. So what I did was I made a few commitments early on. So I made a commitment and said, I will coach my kids in youth sports or whatever they're involved in. And so that actually forced me to wake up earlier, get all my work done, turn off the laptop at a certain period of time because I had to be on the field with them.
Right.
And then I could get back to it once they went to bed. So I could work around that. And then with my spouse, it's really, again, it's about making that time. If it's on the calendar, it fits. And so you make the time for date night, you lock it in, you pre-plan it and make it happen. And then everything else falls into place.
There's something we spoke about on the show. And again, if you listen to the show in its entirety, you're going to hear Josh knows everything. He's done everything successful. That's the way I felt.
No.
He just seems to have every answer. But then every time I ask Josh a challenging question of, hey, what happened when this failed? Or if there's a failure here, you constantly leaned on people. And I wanted our listeners to understand that even though you may be perceived that you know a lot, you have a great support system around you.
Yeah, I always enjoy speaking with authority, but in the real big scheme and behind the scenes of it is always leaning on somebody else that has expertise. So I've always tried to understand and know what I don't know. And as I've gotten older, I figured out that, even though when I was 12, I knew everything, I know a lot less now. And so I get to lean on everybody that has expertise in the right area.
So if people want to get in touch with you, not only for your current business, but also being a part of EO, where you are the incoming president this year, and I want to be spending more time with you, definitely since we first met and even after today's show, how would people get in touch?
Yeah, so go to founderscale.com, hit the contact page and fill out the form. Just ask for me. If you're looking at EO, Entrepreneur Organization Atlanta, then go to eoatlanta.com and hit that membership button.
And who's the coolest entrepreneur that you ever met here in Atlanta? You've met so many of them. Is there one that stands out as maybe the coolest or a really cool entrepreneur that people, if they could meet him, would want to meet here in Atlanta?
So people are often surprised because this was pre-Pardot exit. But David Cummings was actually my mentor and moderator for the Accelerator, EO Accelerator program. And the whole group that was in there, CBQ, Charles Quinn, David Cummings, a number of other people that were in there, were just an amazing group.
This comes from a man who spent 5 days on an island with Richard Branson.
With Richard Branson.
I met him in the BVIs.
You got to hear that in the podcast. Well, listen, if you're an entrepreneur, I always love this time of season because it's March Madness. And if you learn anything out there, no matter where you are in your business, it's a beautiful thing to be the underdog. And you may have seen in the first 2 rounds this year, there's a small school called Oral Roberts. and they actually beat two Titans, Ohio State and Florida, to get themselves to the Sweet 16. They were one of only two 15 seeds in the history of the NCAA tournament to make it to the Sweet 16. So no matter where you are, you're behind on sales, 4 people just quit on you, you're asking yourself, how the hell am I going to make my next payroll? Or you've got to go to the bank and squeeze out a line of credit. If you truly want to make it, we have heard stories time and time again on the Shrimp Tank podcast about entrepreneurs that had their back against the wall, and that is where we live. Always play the role of the underdog, because people are always going to underestimate you, and if you put it together, it's always going to be sort of darkest before it turns to dawn. Know that you're climbing that hill. Sometimes it's going to seem like you aren't going to reach the top, but you're a lot closer than you think. And that's a post-show wrap-up of the Shrimp Tank.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the